Don't mind me. I'm just amputating the arms off of this jack-o'-lantern sculpture. Probably be easier to use a Dremel. There's nothing better than a little good old-fashioned Civil War amputation, am I right? Hello, I'm Joe from Scarecrow Joe's Studio. If you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Don't forget to subscribe. You know, we're going towards the middle of March here, and I'm gearing up for spooky season because Halloween is my main theme. And what you just witnessed is me actually removing or sawing off the arms of this jack-o'-lantern sculpture that I made many, many years ago. I love the sculpt on him. He's awesome. And yes, this is paper mache. He's great. I mean, nothing wrong with the sculpt. So, but the arms and the stem were just shoddy craftsmanship. When I made these arms, I wasn't all that experienced in paper mache. So they're not very dynamic looking. They're flat on one side. Both of them are flat on one side. And then at the time that I was creating this, I thought it would be really cool to actually attach some actual wooden little branches. Well, that turned out to be disastrous because every single time that I moved this prop from my basement to display, I snapped off some of the arms, some of the hands that were made from actual tree branches. They became brittle over time and it just didn't work out. This one was much longer. This is how it looks now. The stem was nothing but a piece of bendable wire shoved inside some newspaper, and I had very, very little paper mache clay on this, and all it did was flex and bend, and it kept breaking, and I had to keep repairing it. So it was time to just get rid of these body parts and construct some new ones. In this tutorial, I'm going to show you how to construct arms that you can attach to your jack-o'-lantern sculpture to make it posable and more dynamic. And also, I'm going to show you how I'm going to recreate the stem and reapply those new variations to this existing sculpture. So, without further ado, let's get started. Before I get started on reconstructing the arms and attaching them to this older paper mache jack-o'-lantern, I wanted to show you a newer version. And I actually have a tutorial on the channel. It's called the Crop Keeper, where I actually make a smaller version of the Crop Keeper. And this head of the jack-o'-lantern was actually part of that original sculpture. But if you take a look at the arms on this one now, compared to these, they're much better. And they're a lot stronger. There aren't any actual wooden pieces on here, but I'm going to make even better arms to attach to this guy. And I'm going to try to make them a little bit more dynamic. I want some more movement in the look to this. So instead of posing some little arms just sticking out straight, maybe I'll put a couple of bends and some elbows, and then I'll put a more dynamic stem on him as well. Now what I have in front of me is an array of different tools and materials that I'm going to use to create these more posable and detachable arms. And for that, I'm using some PVC pipe. This is, I think, 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch in diameter PVC pipe. And I've just cut down a small portion of it. I don't know, I'm thinking maybe this is 3-4 inches long that I cut down. And then I'm also using some of these L brackets here. Not sure exactly what they're called, but this is also PVC, and this will allow me to insert that smaller piece of PVC right into that. So I'll have a smaller piece on this end, and then I have a little bit of a larger piece here, and I can attach that onto that end. On this side of my jack-o'-lantern, there was a bunch of newspaper that was built up in there. And so I removed all the newspaper that was inside of there. I still have to do it on this side so you could see all the many layers of newspaper. I don't have to carve into the existing paper mache clay or anything like that. I'm just removing most of the inside of this newspaper. The reason I'm doing that is to allow me to insert the larger or longer end of the PVC pipe directly into my sculpture. So something like that. Now once I have all of this built up, I want this piece of it right here to be detachable. So I'm going to create my arms off of this small piece of PVC by using a combination of bendable wire, masking tape, aluminum foil, and then of course I'm going to use some paper mache clay and probably some cotton and some other different materials to incorporate into the actual arms. And I haven't quite completely worked out how I'm going to do this. I just have this idea in mind. This will allow me to remove this section. So this is like the elbow, right? This will remain inserted into the jack-o'-lantern permanently. And then this section where I'm going to actually build the arm off of, I'll be able to remove this. So that way, when I go to store it, I will be able to detach these arms and store them and not have to worry about breaking them off when I'm moving them around to display them or to store them. So that's the idea. The wire that I'm using, I just got it at the hardware store. Unfortunately, I threw away the package, so I can't tell you the exact gauge or size of the diameter of this wire, but you know, it's good enough. It's not like super thin, but it's not like heavy duty super thick. I really don't need anything really thick because I'm going to build upon it. But that's the idea. And then as for the stem, I did leave quite a bit of the actual stem attached to the pumpkin. I'm not going to remove this whole thing and recreate the whole thing. I'm just going to add more to this existing stem stump that I have here by probably adding some more aluminum wire, or I may just sculpt right on top of this. I'll see once I get to that area of this project here, but first things first, I want to go ahead and start working on these arms. All right, so as I said, I removed the newspaper from inside that arm socket, and I need to remove the newspaper from inside this arm socket. It's really easy to remove. I'm just using my long pliers, needle nose pliers, just grabbing a hold of some, and I'm just gonna pull it out. I probably don't need to pull out all of it. I do want to leave some of it in there so that I want to be able to get it all the way in there. It's still loose, so I am going to have to attach that by using some glue or some type of adhesive. And then, of course, I'm going to clay around this area as well to hold this PVC pipe in place. All right, so I gave it a little bit more thought, and I was thinking, why am I going to make this so that I have two pieces that are removable when I could just sculpt my arm and my hand onto this, which I think is a solid idea. But instead of struggling and trying to get this off of this piece here, why don't I just leave this piece removable instead of this piece? So that's what I'm going to do. So I have shifted gears already. I have already changed my mind. I'm going to sculpt around this area. I'm going to sculpt around this whole piece. And so once I attach the arms and I build up my arms and my hands, this whole piece with the arm and the hand attached to it will be removable. That makes a little bit more sense. So anyway, what I have done, just kind of fooling around with things. I took 3 pieces of my bendable wire and I cut them. They're not the same length. They don't really need to be. It's fine. And on the ends here, I just created some little loops, as you could see, so I could kind of loop them together. And I made sure that that will fit right inside my little piece of PVC, and it does. My idea is to form this in place, or adhere this in place, by using some basic epoxy putty that I got at my hardware store. I don't have to mix anything. It's one of those tubes that comes pre-mixed. You just kind of have to, you know, well, you do have to mix it, but you don't have to. It's not 2 different tubs. It's just a stick. A lot of people, if you're into construction and you've done like any kind of instruction, you've probably used this material. This is supposed to harden like steel. So I think it would be really, really good product to use to attach these 3 pieces together. And then I'm going to attach some of that putty right around these areas to hold those together. But I think what I need to do is actually, because the putty is going to bulk up that area a little bit, I need to kind of smash it down in the hopes that I will still be able to insert this with the putty on it into my little PVC pipe here. Right, and you should use gloves when you're mixing epoxy, any kind of epoxy. So this is the way that mine looks like. There's like this off brownish gray color in here, and then the outside is more of a gray. I don't think I need that much, so I'm just going to take a small bit here, and you do need to mix them together. This stuff stinks, I'll tell you that. You should probably do this in a well-ventilated area. But again, those of you who have used this material, you already know that. This is just information for people who have not used this material before. So I'm going to kind of mix it up as best I can. I should probably be doing this outside. It's not a pleasant smell, like at all, but I've already started it indoors. All right, I think I've got that mixed well enough. I'm just going to take a little piece of it here, and I'm going to form it right around this metal piece, or these bendable wires. On this little package of the epoxy putty that I have, it does not specify how long this actually takes to cure and harden. Okay, so that epoxy plumbing putty, because that's exactly what it is, it actually cured within 20 minutes. So it's like rock solid. And this is how it looks. And I can still bend and move these wires here, and I can insert it directly inside my little PVC pipe. I decided to kind of try something a little bit different with my other arm. So same kind of process. I cut 3 lengths of the bendable wire, and instead of using the epoxy putty, I just used some masking tape, and I taped the 3 pieces of bendable wire together. My idea for the other arm is to use expanding foam. So while this was curing, I went down to the hardware store and I picked up a can of Great Stuff. This is the Gaps and Cracks brand. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to attach my other arm here directly inside and spray some of this expanding foam inside there and see if it holds. I forgot I moved the trash can over there. I'll pick that up later. Anyway, this should do the trick, and if not, then I will go back and make another one with some of the epoxy putty. But I think this is going to be a little less toxic too. Let's see, instructions. Number 1, failure to follow all directions can result in injury or death. All right, so in an effort to not die while using this, I did read all the instructions. I have used this before. It's pretty straightforward. You got to shake it pretty good for at least a minute, and then you dispense it very slowly using the attached straw here that you screw onto the valve. So if you haven't used this stuff, make sure you always wear gloves, and it's probably a good idea to wear some protective glasses, goggles or something like that. But anyway, my idea is I'm going to place, this is the longer end, is the end that's going to be inserted into my jack-o'-lantern so that I can remove this. The shorter end is where I'm going to take my bendable wire here with the masking tape that's holding it in place temporarily, and I'm going to just insert it in there. And you know, it hits the back of the joint and that's where it'll stay. And I have some cardboard down on my table to kind of protect it, and I'm very, very slowly going to just squirt some of that in there. And you're only supposed to fill up an area that you're trying to, that you're trying to fill. You should only fill it halfway because it's expanding foam, and after it starts curing, it will expand. So I kind of overdid it, but that's okay. Looking inside there, it has not come through all the way through the other side of my piece of PVC pipe. That's completely fine. So I think what I'm going to do here is wait to see if it's going to set up and hold these wires in place just as is. So I'll be back after this sets. All right, so the expanding foam actually worked great. It held these in place. And as you can see, I did go in, and while it was still not completely cured, I took a knife and I trimmed off a bunch of it. And you can do that, you know, so if you're using this method, if you're trying this out, you could certainly do that if you have too much on there. But this is great. It's stuck in there very well. It's not going anywhere. Now, the other one that I originally put the epoxy putty around, I just inserted that one right into the PVC pipe, and I sprayed some expanding foam in there as well. So both of them do have the expanding foam in there. And now it's time to go ahead and start bulking out our arms and forming our hands so that we can complete these armatures to get ready to start sculpting them out in clay. To complete the armature, I'm going to be using some aluminum foil and some masking tape. And pretty simple, what I'm going to be doing is tearing off pieces of aluminum foil, and that's what I'm going to use to bulk up anywhere on my armature that I'm going to, well, number one, then I'm going to be applying some clay. I don't necessarily need to bulk up aluminum foil on this section where it's going to be inserted into the jack-o'-lantern, but I do want to bulk up some areas, the areas all around here. These are going to serve as my fingers, so I am going to take some more aluminum foil and I'm going to wrap aluminum foil around each one of what's going to be my fingers, sort of individually. I've got a little piece sticking out there that I will cover in just a moment. So there I have the two fingers. I've got one more that I need to bulk out. So if you're planning on doing this and you want more than, say, 3 fingers, if you want 4 fingers, 5 fingers, how many fingers you want, Instead of using 3 pieces of wire, if you wanted 4 fingers or 5, you're going to use 5 pieces of wire. That's the easiest way to accomplish that. I want to take one more piece of aluminum foil and right around where the fingers here that I bulked out, I want to take another piece of aluminum foil and I want to wrap right around in there. And now, because you have the bendable wire in there, just compressing a little bit, we're going to bulk all of this out with some masking tape. We're going to wrap it all in masking tape, and also with, of course, clay on top of it. But if you wanted to use a little bit less clay, just add more aluminum foil to the fingers. But going back to what I was saying, because we are using the bendable wire, you have an opportunity to kind of form and position your fingers in any way that you want. So if you want your fingers bent, you can certainly do that. Let me bring this forward. And I'll go ahead and insert that in there. So just to give you a little bit of an idea of how that's going to look. You don't want to bulk it up so much on the arm unless, of course, you want really thick arms, because keep in mind that when we're applying the clay, it's going to bulk that up even more. So in this way, because we're going to make them so that they're detachable, after they're all sculpted out, and you can insert them and you can attach them and position them in any way. So there you go. So that's that. There's one arm there. What I'm going to do on the whole arm armature, including the section where it's going to be inserted into my jack-o'-lantern, I'm going to apply some masking tape. The masking tape is going to help not only secure the aluminum foil in place, it's going to help my paper mache clay to adhere better. Now, my Scarecrow Joe's Studio paper mache clay that I make does adhere very well straight onto aluminum foil. I know for a fact there are some other paper mache clays that have a really hard time just adhering to anything slick, and especially something that's plastic. And of course, PVC is a hard plastic. So for that reason, I'm going to take the time and wrap all of it, including the fingers, in masking tape. All right, so I have that all covered in masking tape. So that's going to secure that. The next thing that I want to do, I'm going to insert my arm back in to the hole there. And I'm going to make a mark, just using a red Sharpie. I'm going to make a mark all the way around my arm on that tape. That's going to give me an indication of where not to sculpt in any clay. So I'm not going to be putting any clay at all on this section that's going to be inserted in there. Okay? Hope that makes sense. So from that mark on, I'm going to sculpt all of this out. Now off camera, I'm going to go ahead and bulk up the other one. I don't think that you need to watch me do that. But for the stem, what I have decided to do is I went ahead and I removed some, not all, but some of the newspaper that was in there. And again, I'm going to go ahead with some of my aluminum foil. Basically, I'm just going to create a shape of whatever stem that I want for this jack-o'-lantern. I want to make it so that I can insert it right inside the existing stem. So just like that. And then of course I can position it in any way that I want. I'm gonna tape the entire piece of foil here in the masking tape. And then once I have done that, I'm gonna put some hot glue inside here and then shove that down in there. Position it the way that I want it to be positioned. Probably something like that, I think. I don't know. And then after that's positioned, I can go ahead and apply my paper mache clay onto that. So I'll go ahead and I'll do that off camera. I'll do the other arm off camera, bulk it up just the same way that I did. And then that's going to end this segment of this tutorial on how to create some dynamic detachable arms to insert into a jack-o'-lantern. And we'll pick up where we left off in the next segment, which will be in the next few days. But before I go, I want to talk a little bit more about inserting arms or creating arms on a jack-o'-lantern form. Now, of course, I had some arms on here. I sawed them off. I didn't like them. I'm just inserting into those same areas just some newer arms that I'm creating. Now, if you have a jack-o'-lantern form and you want to create some arms for it and make it something like this, where it does have some arms and some creepy hands, here is a basic jack-o'-lantern form that I used strip macheing a plastic grocery bag, and I hollowed it out. It's, you know, dry, it's hollowed out. And I took my paper mache clay, and the first thing that I always do is I clay over the bottom, and I make sure that I get the insides just a little bit. The reason that I do that is because it gives it a really nice solid base in which to design and cut out my facial features and whatever else that I need without me worrying about it collapsing on the bottom, and especially after applying more clay. But if you're going to attach arms to a pumpkin form that's not sculpted, that's even easier. You do the same thing, but in this case, you would just cut holes that are maybe a little bit bigger in the diameter of your PVC pipe. Just cut a hole, and that way you can just insert those right into a brand new pumpkin form that hasn't even been sculpted. Now, if you have one that has been sculpted and you don't really like the way it looks, you might have a hard time cutting through the actual clay, but you can do it with like a Dremel or something like that. And you could take that pumpkin form that you've already created, your jack-o'-lantern, cut some holes into the sides, and do the same process in attaching some arms. So either way, you can create some pretty dynamic looking arms and attach them to a jack-o'-lantern form. It's pretty easy. But for now, that's going to be a wrap on this segment on how to complete an armature for arms and hands to insert into a jack-o'-lantern sculpture. Within the next couple of days, I'll have the next segment on the tutorial out and uploaded on my channel, where we actually sculpt out the hands and the arms, and also my new pumpkin stem. So until then, I thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.